So we got about 45 minutes before the Columbus versus Minnesota game is about to start, but that's just enough time for me to do a quick news of the week episode. And by the way, in tonight's Columbus versus Minnesota game, it's a no-win situation for me, because if Columbus does beat the Loons tonight, then the Quakes are going to be facing against the team that is heavy favorites of winning the tournament in the quarterfinal. And if the Loons wins tonight, then we're going to have another Blues Knot derby, and you know I do not want to see a Blues Knot derby in a knockout stage. I mean, I already suffered enough earlier this season when I have to witness a Blues Knot derby that was a one-sided game. I don't want to witness another one in the quarterfinals. So, yeah, it's a no-win situation for me, and that I basically just have to pick the poison in terms of who exactly the Quakes want to face in the quarterfinal. But that being said, let's actually get back to the news of the week episode. And unlike previous news of the week episode, I am not going to spend a lot of time talking about MLS news related to the COVID-19 pandemic, because we know the pandemic is wreaking havoc in the sports world, and that the MLB and USL seems to have a lot of problem in terms of trying to get this pandemic under control and not have their players keep getting tested positive for COVID-19. Now, the good news is MLS have announced that no player have been tested positive for COVID-19 for 2 weeks now. And with this news, I'm pretty sure not only the fact that the bubble is clearly working and that this is clear evidence that of course is the case, but it's pretty clear that we are going to be finishing this tournament. And I know in these last couple of days we have seen less and less people and less kind of those social keyboard warriors on social media that decided to say that this tournament should be null and void and that it's not safe for the players to play. Yeah, they're all of a sudden start to disappear because of the fact that it's clear that this tournament is going to continue and that there's no actual case said that, well, there's no actual player that's been tested positive for COVID-19, and that unless if there's a crazy outbreak that is going to happen these next 2 weeks in the bubble, which God forbid, hopefully that won't be the case, no way in the world this tournament is going to be canceled right now, and we are going to see a champion in this MLS's back tournament. Speaking of champion, I want to just do a quick shout out to the Houston Dash, who of course won the NWSL Challenge Cup over the Chicago Red Star. Unfortunately, I haven't been able to pay a lot of attention to the NWSL Challenge Cup, but I know for people that have been paying attention to that, they've been saying that the Dash winning this tournament was a big surprise, and that not a lot of people saw Houston were the one to win the whole tournament. And if that is the case, you know, you never know about the MLS's back tournament, where we might see something similar to what we saw in the NWSL Challenge Cup, where the winner of this tournament, nobody saw it coming, and nobody thought that they were going to be the favorites of actually winning this whole tournament. Now, the biggest news coming out of this week has to be with CONCACAF, and that they, of course, announced their brand new World Cup qualifying format. And I know for the past couple of months there's been a lot of speculation of how this format is going to look, but yesterday they finally announced the official format. And I was thinking about doing a video about this because of the fact that it was such a big announcement, but I decided not to and just include it into the news of the week because it's pretty simple to explain the format. There's going to be 3 rounds in this format, and in round number 1, teams that is ranked 6 through 30 through the CONCACAF ranking system will be playing in a, or actually not ranked 6 through 30, it's actually 6 through 36, and that these teams will be gathered into 6 groups of 5, and that the team that is ranked from 6 through 11 will be the top seed of these group, which means that they're going to be in separate group, and that in these group stage game there's going to be 4 match day with each of these teams will be playing against each other in their group, and also the winner after this group stage of the first round will be moving on into the second round of the CONCACAF World Cup qualifying format, which is the group winners will play against each other in a 2-legged home and away kind of affair, and that the winner of those 2-legged affair will be moving on as those 3 teams that is going to be joined what is now going to be called, I guess, the Octagon now. I mean, originally we all know about the Hex or the Hexagonal, where it's featured 6 teams that is going to be part of the final round of the World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF, and they of course will try to be one of those top 3 team or top 4 team that potentially move on into the World Cup. Well, now it's going to be 8 teams, and those 8 teams will be vying for those top 3 automatic spot and the 4th spot, which of course will be basically placed in an intercontinental kind of World Cup qualifying playoff of format where they have to face another team, I believe, in the Oceania region in a 2-legged affair to decide whether or not if they are going to be going to the World Cup in Qatar in 2022. Now, I really like this new format, and I know this format means that it's going to be tougher for the US to make it to the World Cup, and that I hope this format also can wake up a lot of those top rank official in the US Soccer Federation, knowing the fact that it's no longer just a cakewalk anymore in terms of these qualifying, that there's going to be more competition for those top 3 spot. But this also gives chances for these smaller teams to potentially join in as the final round, whereas before they pretty much had no shots in terms of joining the Hex. And I think this is also even better news for all those teams that just miss out on the Hex in previous World Cup qualifying cycle, because now those teams could now potentially be those final 3 teams that of course will be joining in the final round of the World Cup qualifying, and teams like Canada, El Salvador, and Jamaica will have a big chance of being those 3 teams that will join as the final round of this World Cup qualifying in CONCACAF. But as I said, I like this format, and that this should create more competition, and that this also could make it a little bit less predictable in terms of who actually qualify for the World Cup out of the CONCACAF region. I mean, I know from years past, it's always been Mexico, US, and Costa Rica, although last year that was a big exception because we know what happened to the US, and I don't have to mention what happened in the last cycle because it was an absolute disaster. But in previous times, it's always been the US, Mexico, and Costa Rica. All this team make it to the World Cup, and although maybe it's going to be once again the case in this format, at least now they're going to have to earn their spot, and that it does make it a little bit unpredictable, and that we might have a surprising team that actually would finish in the top 3 spot of the final round of the World Cup qualifying in the CONCACAF region. Now, Atlanta United has named Stefan Glass as their interim head coach. Stefan Glass was the head coach for their USL affiliate team, Atlanta United 2, so this is basically him getting a promotion, being an interim head coach. Although I'm not quite sure if he's going to get another promotion of being the head coach of this team on a permanent basis, because I've already heard Atlanta has looking into South America to try to get their next head coach, and that I won't be surprised if it's going to be an Argentine head coach that they're going to sign. Like, they already got Tata Martino as their Argentine head coach when they came into the league, and look how successful that was. So they look to hope that if they might find another kind of similar style that Tata Martino brings to this Atlanta team as their new head coach, because obviously the fan base right now are just glad the fact that they don't have to endure the boredom that is Frank de Boer's tactics in terms of the way that he plays this team, and they definitely demand the Atlanta United front office to bring a head coach that plays an attacking style and plays something similar to what Tata Martino implemented with this team. Now, DC United have extended Paul Arriola's contract to 2023 with an option for 2024. This is not a big surprise because Paul Arriola is the most important player for this team. Like, you can clearly see from this tournament, and even in the beginning of the year, them without Paul Arriola, how much toothless that DC United attack is, and that they would definitely hope to have him back next year after he suffered for this torn ACL and still recovering it, because he is really the missing piece of what will drive this DC United attack, and it's no surprise that DC United front office realized that and immediately locked him to a contract, and that he's going to be here for a couple more years. Now, the Chicago Fire picked up Jonathan Bornstein option for 2021. This is kind of an interesting one, but at the same time, I have a feeling Fire fans, when they see this news, they probably think, yeah, the Fire front office has once again decided to cheap out. Like, I can definitely see that the Chicago Fire front office, that they have just kind kind of change in these last couple of years. Well, in these last 2 years, that is, has started to bring in more attacking talent and start to spend more money. But the problem is those money that they've been spending has been on attacker and not defender, and it seemed like they're being kind of cheap in terms of their defensive option. And I understand most MLS team tends to always spend the most on their attack, and usually they have kind of an afterthoughts in terms of their defensive reinforcement. But we've seen it before, where if you're an MLS team and you want to be competitive, you got to also make sure you have a competent defense. And right now, with the way that I look at this backline of the Chicago Fire, I don't think that is a competent backline, and that clearly they need to sign a couple more players and also add a couple more players on their depth chart in terms of their backline, because that backline is also pretty thin. So just bring back Jonathan Bornstein, who you know, I'm not quite sure if he's a decent option as a starter, but maybe they think he's a decent option on the bench. It's kind of a weird one for them to do. But yeah, we'll see how that of course will work out for them. But moving on, in terms of the next news, is talk about the latest European superstar player that is linked with Inter Miami. Now, these last couple of days, there has been a lot of report that Falcao is going to go to Inter Miami. And some even say that move have actually confirmed, because they've shown a picture of the fact that Falcao's name is at the back of an Inter Miami jersey. Now, I have heard no reports from other sites or even any European reports saying that Falcao is going to come to MLS. And that if he does come to MLS and does come to Inter Miami, I'm not quite sure this is the best option they could bring as their third DP and as their promised European superstar player that they want to bring in for this team. Because Falcao, for these past couple of years, he has definitely not looked good whatsoever. And keep in mind, he's also 34 years old right now, so you wonder how much left in the tank does he actually have if he does come to Inter Miami. This is just kind of questionable why they decide to get him. And that, I think the other important thing besides the age and also the form is, can he really be a guy that can rediscover his form that he has back in his Monaco day and in his early career, where he was just scoring goals for fun and being one of the most lethal goal scorers in Europe? I mean, that is a big question to ask, and knowing the fact that Inter Miami clearly needs some attacking option and need a proven goal scorer, signing Falcao as them thinking that is going to be their proven goal scorer is definitely a huge gamble. But we shall see whether or not if that is going to happen. And again, there's just been no report saying that he is going to be coming to Inter Miami, and the only report is just a picture of the fact that they're of his name in the back of an Inter Miami jersey, and they didn't even tell us where did they actually found that picture. Was that in the team store, or was it in any other store where they decided to just kind of Photoshop or just kind of printed his name just because maybe the store owner really liked Falcao and they decided to put his name in the back of an Inter Miami jersey. Now, for some more realistic kind of transfer news, is that Atlanta United and numerous MLS club is in pursuit for Monterrey midfielder Jonathan Gonzalez. Obviously, we all know Jonathan Gonzalez as a player that a couple of years ago infamously decided to activate his one-time switch from the U.S. men's national team to the Mexican national team. And not only the fact that he kind of angered a lot of U.S. fans, the U.S. Soccer Federation was not happy about this move. But in many ways, as much as I know U.S. fans are not happy, the fact that they might have missed out on a very good midfielder for their national team, they should be really angry with the Soccer Federation, with them just letting him decided to join their rival without really kind of convince him. But in this kind of rumor, it's actually now surrounded the fact that Atlanta and numerous MLS club are trying to pursue him. Now, one thing that I have also heard is that they said that Jonathan Gonzalez has no interest of coming to MLS and that he want to stay with Rayados. And the other thing that is a little bit an issue for these numerous MLS club and Atlanta is that Rayados is gonna ask Atlanta to ask them to pay a lot of money in order to get him. I mean, we already saw when Rodolfo Pizarro come to Inter Miami how much Rayados asked Inter Miami to pay, and I just thought that when Inter Miami paid that $10 million fee for Rodolfo Pizarro, that seemed like an overpay. And so far, in these 5 games that he's been with Inter Miami, yes, I know he has scored goals, and he is the top leading goal scorer of the team, but he still isn't generating enough where I can say he's definitely worth the $10 million that Inter Miami, of course, decided to pay. So, do Atlanta United decided to try to maybe overpay for a player that might not be worth that? Like, getting Jonathan Gonzalez will definitely improve that midfield that clearly needs some improvement after they decided to let Darlington Nagbe walk. But at the same time, you know, they're going to have to try to overpay another player. And I know Atlanta United has a history in terms of paying other club a large sum of money in order to get their player. I mean, Atlanta is probably the best example in terms of not being afraid to spend the money after they currently owns like the 2 top transfer fee that they play other club to get players with the likes of Pity Martinez and Ezekiel Barco. The fact that both of them, they spend, I think, roughly about 30 million and 40 million to try to get them. But they also have a history of overstaying player, and they just haven't really come to fruition. And I go back to Ezekiel Barco and Pity Martinez, how much they paid him, and both of those guys, especially in this tournament, has not shown that is the amount that Atlanta United has paid for them, and it's actually worth the amount. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether or not if this move does happen or not. But either way, Atlanta really needs a midfielder right now, and clearly, when they decided to let Darlington Nagbe walk, that seems like now might not be a good option, and that it really left a hole in terms of the midfield for them. Now, RSL is interest in German striker Manuel Schäffler. Now, apparently, this is a player that is playing in the 2nd division of the Bundesliga, or the Bundesliga 2 as they call it. And I have heard that he has scored a lot of goals in the 2nd division of the league, so it's no surprise the fact that RSL is very interested to trying to get him, because goal scoring and finding a proper number 9 is a big priority for them. Which is kind of interesting, because I thought a couple of years back, or at least I think just 2 years back, they decided to sign Sam Johnson as their DP striker, and I thought that was going to be their goal scorer for this team. Like, I thought that was going to be the true number 9 with the amount of money that they pay him. But so far in this tournament, Sam Johnson, I think he's only appeared once, and he was a substitute coming off the bench against Minnesota. And I thought when he came off the bench against the Loons, he looked very impressive, and that I thought he was potentially maybe crack into Freddy Juarez for first team and into the starting 11, but that has not been the case, and we haven't really heard the name of Sam Johnson a lot throughout this tournament, which makes me wonder what is going on with him. And that if you're an RSL fan, let me know in the comments below what's going on with Sam Johnson, and why is he not regularly starting or at least feature in Freddy Juarez's team for these past couple of games, consider they signed him as a DP just 2 seasons ago. But either way, again, they need to find a number 9, and that they hope that if they, of course, decide to get Manuel Schäffler, he is going to be the guy that is going to solve the problem they have in terms of finding a number 9 that can score the goals for this team. I mean, goal scoring is definitely an issue for RSL, and you can clearly see in this tournament that they don't really have a lot of goal scoring option going for them this season. But moving on, in terms of the next news, is that Kevin Molino is set to return tonight against not Minnesota, it's actually against Columbus there. And speaking of Kevin Molino, I'm going to quickly check the Loons starting 11, because I believe he might be in the starting 11 tonight. Let's see. Is he in the starting 11? No, he's not in the starting 11, but he is on the substitute bench, which I'm really hope at some point tonight the Loons would eventually sub him on, because Kevin Molino has really been the MVP for this attack the Loons throughout this tournament, and it's pretty clear when the Loons did not had Kevin Molino in that game against the Rapids, how much they really miss his presence, and that the attack, didn't look as sharp as when they had Kevin Molino in the starting 11. So hopefully at some point in tonight's game, Adrian Heath will decide to sub him on, and I'm assuming most likely he will sub him on. I mean, there's no guarantee, because knowing Adrian Heath, he tends to be one of those head coach that doesn't like to use his bench very often, and it's kind of one of the few things that I'm kind of always frustrated about Adrian Heath not using his bench and not decided to freshen some of our team. But hopefully he'll use Kevin Molino tonight, and that actually bring him in the game and make an impact. But it's great to see that he is now back with this team, because again, he has really been the most important player on our attack, and in these last couple of games without him, you can see clearly we have not looked the same on the attack when he was there. Now, one player that is not going to be in this MLS's back tournament anymore is Dwyer, who of course left the bubble to undergo MRI on his knees, and that I'm pretty sure a lot of MLS fans will just say good riddance, and that some Orlando City fan might say that, well, it doesn't really matter. I mean, we already have guys like Tesha Akindele and Nani that has been proven to be the goal scorer of this team. But in all seriousness, let's just hope Dwyer is okay. And it's kind of sad to see that he's now suffered another injury, because he has just suffered so many injuries for the past couple of years, and has had a lot of trouble in terms of staying healthy. And you wonder, maybe that might be the reason why his form has really dipped ever since he came to Orlando City, and that he just have never rediscovered that amazing form that he has when he was with Sporting KC a couple of years back. DC United legend Jaime Moreno might actually lose his eyesight after a scary golf incident, and I actually saw the image of him in the hospital with his eyes just kind of bleeding out, and let's just say it's not a very good kind of image, and definitely viewer discretion advised if you want to see those image. But yeah, it's very unfortunate to see that of course happen, and that I've heard what happened there was he was trying to get the golf ball out of the rough, and then his technique was not only all wrong, but he accidentally hit the ball where it basically hit directly into his eye. Now, that is a very rare incident you see in golf, but when it happened, it is very, very scary. And let's just hope Jaime Moreno is okay, and certainly thoughts and prayers to hope that he is, of course, going to be okay. I know the DC United supporter group have already started a GoFundMe to try to fund the surgery and the recovery fees that Jaime Moreno is going to have to pay to get him. So it's great to see the fact that the fan base still care about him, and that knowing the fact that he is a legend and he is known as one of the best player in the early days of MLS. It's not surprised the fact that he's getting a lot of support from the fan base. And then finally, going back to CONCACAF, the Nation League final will now be scheduled to take place in March 2021, and that they haven't announced the venue yet, but it's going to be in the U.S. And the Gold Cup will happen between July 10th and August 1st. Now, the Nation League is set to start in September, but judging how the pandemic has been going on, I'm not quite sure whether or not if that is going to be delayed, and if that is going to be delayed, then the final is probably going to be delayed too, because you only get certain amount of window to play these games, and that I'm not quite sure if FIFA is going to be ready to open the international break again after they decide to cancel it back in March. And the Gold Cup itself, they decided to move it a month later than previous year, and I guess maybe the reason why they decided to do it is because the Nation League potentially might be delayed, so that they don't have to have like a schedule where it's all cramped up before we of course go into the Gold Cup. And they also want to let teams to have some preparation game before the Gold Cup happens during this time between July 10th and August 1st. But yeah, there you have it. That is pretty much it for the news of the week. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And if there's any news that I didn't mention on the board, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.